Welcome to another edition of Eye on the Issues. And today we're talking with Eric Epstein. He is the chairman of the Mile Island Alert Organization. Of course, 3 Mile Island being the nuclear power plant that was operational for some time there in Pennsylvania before there was an accident. So, Eric, welcome and tell us a little bit about your organization.
Yeah, let me start by saying 3 Mile Island Unit 1, which is the plant they're trying to restart, came online in 74. The plant that had the meltdown was only online for 4 months, and it was not, has not, probably will not be cleaned up. We were formed in 77, 2 years before 3 Mile Island Unit 2 came online. Because of our litigation, we were able to get reinforced concrete, which essentially helped to, I don't say help, but did mitigate the impacts of the accident. So we sit on the Susquehanna River. We monitor the nuclear power plant in Susquehanna. It's up in the coal region. They just cut a contract with Amazon. We obviously monitor TMI. They cut a contract with Microsoft. And right on the Pennsylvania-Maryland border is Peach Bottom 1, 2, and 3. And we monitor that facility as well. So if you go to our website, you'll see there's a chronology of problems at each of the plants since its inception and up to the modern time. So it's a lot of work, and people probably know that the river feeds into the Chesapeake Bay.
Mhm. And a fair amount of the power in Pennsylvania is from nuclear. Can you get into that a little bit?
Well, we have the second largest concentration, but we're a gas state. We're the second largest producer of natural gas after Texas. So about 60% comes from gas and about 35 from nuclear. We have 5 stations throughout the state. And, it's a very pro-nuclear state. You have Westinghouse out west, and there's a lot of history with that. What makes us unique is that we export 30% of our electricity. We actually have a surplus. So there's no need really for the expansion of nuclear power plants other than to meet the demand of the AI hysteria.
Mhm. What's the time frame for getting that one reactor at 3 Mile Island back up and running?
They'd like to get it up in a couple of years, but what I've always told people, anything that is rushed never has a good ending, and this is rushed. It's an old plant, analog. I don't know where you're going to get your parts. You can't run down to the Pep Boys and just grab them off the shelf. So you have an old plant. It's 837 megawatts. It's not that big, and it'll ship all its energy to Northern Virginia and the Midwest for data centers owned by Microsoft.
Wow, very
So
interesting.
you so this
And
so the situation here is it's again, lopsided, unfair, and you have a plant that's going to restart. The government's going to spend a lot of money for an old plant to get back online to sell energy to another area code,
mhm.
use our water, use our workers, but we get to keep the waste.
Have
Nobody
they
signed up for
held
that.
any hearings to talk about this at all?
Yeah, but the hearings are the NRC. They're a captured agency. I'm starting to think that NRC stands for not really concerned. And most people, look, have been seduced by this nuclear zeitgeist, and environmental oversight has been gutted. What we have at 3 Mile Island is we have a high-level radioactive waste site on an island in the middle of the river that empties into the bay. I can't think of a worse place to locate nuclear waste. And because of the agreement with DOE, the utilities sued the Department of Energy because they could not find a permanent waste site. TMI, like other utilities, get paid. They get paid to keep the waste on site. So there's a disincentive to find a solution to this because essentially you can bring the plant to a stop, get paid a couple hundred million a year, do nothing, and the waste ain't going nowhere.
And do we know how much waste is there?
Yeah. So at TMI too, the whole reactor is radioactive. I mean, they had an accident. There hasn't been a human entry into the basement since 79. That'll give you some idea of the difference between human time and nuclear time. It's forever. You look at Unit 2, and they have 700, not megatons, 700 metric tons, sorry, radioactive waste at their waste facility. It's known as an independent spent fuel storage installation. It was built illegally. They went in and got the decommissioning funds because they said, hey, we're going to decommission. So we're going to use this money to build the facility. They're building another one. And then TMI2 is building another one, even though they claim not to have any fuel for theirs. So TMI will actually have three different waste isolation facilities.
Wow. And let's talk for a little bit about the region. The Susquehanna River empties. It's the largest source of fresh water going into the Chesapeake Bay. There's
Right.
61 parks in the basin. I mean, this could be a huge problem for the public if there's an issue.
Yeah, but the regulatory agencies are cheerleading. Our State Department of Environmental Protection, the NRC, they all got their pom-poms out. I mean, this summer, when the governor unveiled the reopening of TMI, he actually had Miss America there. That's where we're at. So if you look at where we're at, we're on the lower Susquehanna. And if you start with Harrisburg, Harrisburg's under a consent agreement for discharging sewage into the river. Below that, you have an environmental justice community in Middletown. And then below that, what's interesting, you have three dams. All three dams are over 100 years old and have immense silt buildup. By the way, across from TMI, sometimes people get confused, is a coal and a gas plant. So this is a densely concentrated energy park, for lack of a better word. In
Mhm.
fact, when they built TMI, that part of the river was supposed to be an energy park. And there is coal. They had hydro. Now you have nuclear. Great for water skiing and fishing. You can still see the signs about the vision. It was kind of like a nuclear Leviathan. Here's the vision. You could have recreation, energy, then that's all gone.
And in respect to drinking water, talk about that in the region.
Drinking water is a little different because this is still a pretty rural area and a lot of people have their own water. The problem here with drinking water is we have two mega water companies that are eating all the smaller ones. And when you have a distressed community with a municipal water, the big boys come in and then you have rate hikes for the rest of your life. So the water is interesting. I think the quality of water, for the most part, drinking is fine. The issue we have, and a lot of it has to do with the Amish who live very close proximity, is farming practices where, they apply manure to the field and it runs off. So we have enough challenges. I mean, Chesapeake Bay needs a lot of work. Our issue when it comes to drinking water, and we're in a hearing now, and we ask it, who gets the water first in a drought? Do we give it to humans or do we give it to robots? How's this going to work? We're an agriculture community. We need the water, but data centers never shut down. So water, I'm glad you raised it. Right now is probably the most argued issue surrounding data centers and nuclear plants.
And let's talk about nuclear waste and spent nuclear fuel storage more like on a national level. For example, Wyoming, where
Right.
we are, has been considering the possibility of being a temporary nuclear storage, waste storage site or spent nuclear fuel. Texas is considering that. A couple other states are as well. What's your warning to them?
Well, there's no such thing as temporary. I mean, once you have the waste, you got it, and it's not going anywhere. I mean, you can see that in Idaho, you can see it in New Mexico. I think we have to be adults and sit down at the table and decide how we're going to do this. I mean, the whole notion of shipping this, and we shipped our waste. We're the only community that's really done it. We had to ship our waste to Idaho, and everybody across the rail line were pissed. They didn't want it coming from their community. So where does it go? Well, it shouldn't stay where it's at right now. Nuclear plants were not designed to store waste. This is actually temporary. I think people should be concerned. And let me just fuse my answer by saying Pennsylvania has the most abandoned coal mines. We have the most abandoned gas wells. We currently have 40 coal mine fires that are burning right now. And I know Wyoming's a coal state. But what I'm trying to say is, and what we've learned from our anthracite experience, when the coal's gone and the owners are gone, the waste stays. The waste stays. And nobody in the industry is working on a solution. they're working on blaming folks. And, I always get accosted. What would you do? I said, look, I have a strategy. We have a strategy at TMI Alert that any waste should be above ground. You should be able to monitor it. You should be able to retrieve it if it leaks. You should be
Sure.
able to monitor it for radiation and also heat, because heat will tell you whether or not it's getting radioactive. So there's a lot of things you could do to make it, less dangerous, but they cost money.
Hmm.
And in this industry, money there's no nuclear economics is a fiction. All the plants across the country were built with ratepayer money or subsidies. There's no private equity chasing nuclear. It's a fiction. And basically, they're rewinding and selling some of the same propositions that they had before with the small reactors. I
Hmm.
can say with confidence, I doubt there'll be a small modular reactor built. What I also can say with confidence, there'll be a lot of money chasing a nuclear rainbow that doesn't exist.
So, from what I understand, the Energy Department is supposed to come out with a plan sometime early this year in respect to nuclear waste storage. Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't, but nobody has any faith in the DOE. I mean, the way it was supposed to happen is when the Atomic Energy Commission was broken up, you had the NRC to regulate and the DOE to promote.
Hmm.
Now the DOE has basically become the majority partner. They've usurped a lot of the functions at the NRC. And this is just my belief. At the end of the day, nuclear waste is probably going to wind up on DOE or DOD military reservations,
Right.
where there's little environmental regulation. They're closer to the facilities. But why are we having this discussion? We haven't solved this issue. I've been doing this for 45 years, and I keep hearing that, solutions, around the bend. Well, the bend is a circle. You're going nowhere. And
Hmm.
until people get serious about solving it, you have in my mind a scenario where our generation will be viewed as environmental Philistines. We
Is it?
created an energy source that we got for a little while, and then we tied future generations with figuring out how to clean it. And I say, look, 500 years ago, a little over 500 years ago, Columbus was coming to America. So you're going to have to store waste minimum 500 years out into the future. So
Mhm.
I just think ethically, morally, it's
Right.
fundamentally unfair. I mean,
So,
we used to have a principle in rate making that was called used and useful. If you got a use from the energy source, whether it was nuclear, coal, whatever, moonshine, you were responsible for paying. This is going to be the first time where people did not receive a benefit and are going to get the headache.
hmm, right, right. It seems like a perpetual game of let's kick the can down the road.
It's all it is, but it's a dangerous game because the can is radioactive, and in the with TMI-2, we shipped our fuel to Idaho. It was supposed to 50 years on the cast. They started to leak, I don't know, maybe 15 years into it. This is just people don't see it, they don't taste it or feel it, so they don't believe it's an imminent threat.
It's
And I don't want people to go through what we went through to make that threat immediate.
sure.
But you can have a day of good nuclear power, a week of good nuclear power, a year, a decade, whatever. Fine track record. All it takes is a weekend to blow it all apart.
Hmm. Understood. Understood. All right, sir. Is there anything I'm not asking you that you want to mention?
Yeah, let me just make three quick comments. One is once a plan is on line, you have no recourse. So people should really be engaged upfront in the hearing process. Two, I mean, you should advocate for a subsidy-free or a subsidy balance formula, because right now it's all about promoting nuclear power. And three, never be afraid to question. Yeah, there's no stupid questions. A lot of people get intimidated by the technology. Don't. The engineers, they're very bright, but everything them is an abstract. People aren't abstract. We're not hypotheticals. We're real.
Yep. Understood. Eric Epstein with the 3 Mile Island Alert. Thank you so much, folks out there. If you want to learn more about what's happening around the country and specifically, of course, Wyoming, just go to wyliberty.org. Sign up for our newsletter. Thank you again, Eric.
Sure. Have a great day.
You too.